Have you ever wondered if there's, a deeper reason why so many relationships seem to lose that initial magic? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating answer to that exact question. It's drawn from a spiritual text that offers what you could call a blueprint for the soul. I mean, it's a story that probably sounds familiar to a lot of us, right? A connection feels so intense, so powerful at the beginning, but then, over time, this subtle distance just starts to creep in. So why? Why does that happen? What is really going on beneath the surface of it all? The source for our explainer today gives a pretty unconventional answer. It comes from a spiritual book called Nosso Lar, which completely reframes the problem. It suggests the issue isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. And get this, the answers are supposedly coming to us from the afterlife. So the whole thing is built around this conversation between a spirit who's just arrived, Andre Luiz, and his guide, a wise spirit named Laura. They're in this spiritual community, sort of looking back at life on Earth and talking about what the home is really for. And according to Laura, the homes that we build here on Earth, well, they're often just pale imitations of a much grander, divine ideal. They're a starting point for sure, but one that's just packed with challenges. The text argues that our relationships often get choked out by what it calls bitter weeds. And these aren't just minor little flaws either. They're described as powerful internal monsters, things like vanity, jealousy, selfishness, and pride. From this viewpoint, these aren't just bad habits. They are actual spiritual forces that are actively creating distance and blocking any chance of real harmony. And the contrast it paints is pretty stark. Think about it. During courtship, we put our best foot forward. We're full of charm, there's mutual understanding. But after marriage, the text gives this warning that the veil of desire gets torn away. And when it does, those old monsters come roaring back, and suddenly you can have a couple living under the same roof whose minds are traveling in completely opposite direction. Okay, so if that's the problem, how do we fix this disconnection? Well, the source offers this surprisingly elegant metaphor, the sacred right angle. You can almost think of it as a spiritual blueprint for how a relationship is actually designed to work. So, from this perspective, a home isn't just four walls and a roof. No, it's a sacred temple. It's a converging point where two souls are meant to connect, not just physically, but spiritually, to really, truly understand each other. And here's where the metaphor gets really interesting, breaking down into these two distinct but complementary forces. You've got the vertical line, which represents female sentiment, the source of inspiration, tenderness, that connection to the divine. And then you have the horizontal line, representing male sentiment, which is focused on action in the world, on achievement and progress. And this is the absolute key. These two lines aren't meant to just run parallel to each other forever. They are designed to meet and form what the text calls a sublime vertex. And this meeting point, this vertex, it's not an end. It's the creation of a whole new, higher step on the great stairway of eternal life. So that's the abstract geometry of it. But how does that actually translate into our day-to-day lives? Let's take a look at the more practical roles that these two lines are meant to represent. Okay, so here the text lays out these really specific interdependent roles. The man, as the horizontal line, operates outside the home, and his job is to bring the richness of his experiences into the home. The woman, the vertical line, provides the inspiration within the home, and her role is to transfer its sweetness and harmony outward. The analogy they use is just beautiful. He is the riverbed, giving it structure, and she is the source, providing the life-giving water that flows through it. Now, it's really important to present the source's views directly and without filtering, and the text makes a very strong, and let's be honest, for many of us today, a pretty controversial statement right here. It describes the feminist movement of its time as a direct offense against what it defines as the true, essential nature of the female spirit. But, and this is a really important clarification, the text isn't arguing that women should be completely confined to the home. Not at all. It explicitly says there are noble services for women outside the home, and it highlights roles that it sees as being aligned with that female spirit, things like nursing, teaching, and other professions focused on care. The source then takes it all a step further by categorizing relationships into a kind of spiritual hierarchy. The idea is that here on Earth, there are fundamentally different kinds of unions happening all around us. And this leads to a claim that is, well, it's staggering. According to this text, the vast majority of couples, an overwhelming percentage, which it pegs at over 90%, are not in what you'd call ideal or even compatible unions. Instead, they're in something it calls expiatory relationships. So let's break this down. At the very, very top, you have twin souls. This is the ultimate spiritual counterpart, a perfect, harmonious union that's said to be incredibly rare on Earth. A step below that, you have kindred souls. These are compatible spirits who find a deep understanding and form beautiful marriages. But even these are few and far between. And then there's the third category, the most common one, expiatory relationships. The text defines these as unions of prisoners in shackles, souls who've come together not out of pure love, but to work through really difficult karmic debts from past lives. Ultimately, the central message here is this. The home isn't just a social contract or a convenient arrangement. It's a divine institution. It's a sacred space that demands our total commitment, our whole heart and soul, because it's the main workshop where we do our spiritual growing. And that really leaves us with a pretty provocative question to think about. I mean, the blueprint laid out here is very specific and it comes from a very particular worldview for sure. But what if we just took its core idea, the idea that our home is a sacred divine institution? How might that one shift in perspective change the way we actually navigate our relationships every